With us, delighted to have the big fella Chris Canty alongside, and delighted to put together this squad. Look who's gotten up with us to talk football today. D Wood's ready to go, Jeremy Fowler, and we welcome Brooke Pryor to the program this morning. We'll have some fun. We'll get to the football in a moment, but we have to begin here with history being made last night in Los Angeles. Performance of the night, Chris Paul and the Suns. One win away from his first ever trip to the NBA Finals. Paul George has other ideas. We're in the third quarter. We got Devin Booker exploding to the hole. The Suns shot 56% from the floor in this game. Booker had 22. Now we're in the third. Clippers down by 13, but not giving up. Marcus Morris Sr., yes, he had 26. They cut it to 10. A minute later, same score. Ball movement. Nicholas Batum in the corner for the triple. Clippers cut it to 7. Suns need a timeout. I don't know what Steve Ballmer is doing there. Meanwhile, less than 13 seconds to go in the third. Chris Paul would not be rattled. He scored or assisted on 16 of the Suns' 31 in the third. And then the fourth quarter was a coronation. Under 10 to go. Suns up 18. Chris Paul, yes, he was 16 of 24 on the night. More Chris Paul stepping back. He was 7 of 8 from three-point range. The Suns can feel it. 2 minutes later, Suns up 115-92. Paul with a dagger. 41 points for Chris Paul on the night. And then look at the end. Look at the cheap shot from Pat Beverly right there. Bush League sore loser nonsense. He was thrown out and justifiably so, but nothing was going to take this night away from Chris Paul. Look at the embrace with the coach Monty Williams. Paul scores 31 in the second half. Finishes with 41 and 8 assists. He's on his way to the finals for the first time.
Chris Paul is in the NBA Finals. What do you think when you hear that sentence?
Man, it sounds damn good. Damn good. It's been a lot of work, man. A lot of work. Going to a new team, everybody staying the course. That team fight hard, but damn, this feel good.
Chris Paul is stamped regardless. Anything else from here is extra. It's extra. I know he wants it bad. I know he's happy about this for his first time, but I know what he's on the pursuit of, and we have that same understanding. We don't talk about it much, but we know what we're trying to get to.
41 points for Chris Paul in a series-clinching win. That after he had 37 in the clincher against Denver. In NBA playoff history, only Karl Malone ever scored more points in a game in the postseason, 36 years of age or older. Paul's 41 last night, tying a career playoff high. So this night is about so many different things as we bring in my Uncle Seth Greenberg, no relation, and Tim Legler, who's got a very important business meeting to attend right after the show. And Legs, I'm glad, thanks for dressing up for us today. Legs, I'll start with you there. Chris Paul, in many people's mind, is already one of the all-time great players. So what does this now mean for him and his legacy?
Well, look, I agree, and I agree with Devin Booker said. This guy's legacy as in terms of caliber of player is cemented. We know what Chris Paul is. This is one of the great point guards of all time, certainly one of the great players of his generation. But here's what this has done. It's erased that but that you always put on the end of a sentence about Chris Paul. When you would say, but it's a shame he was unavailable at critical times in the postseason with injuries. But he was on some underachieving teams with the Clippers all those years with all that talent and several Hall of Fame players on it. That now goes away because the focus is going to be he got this thing to the finish line. Now, can he get it across it? That's obviously just going to be gravy to me. But I think that part of his legacy has changed now because he was available. Now, he was injured a couple of games in this series, but he came back, and not only did he come back, he's the guy that ended matters. And I said going into the game last night, that's what I thought he was going to do, have one of those special nights where he's not just a floor leader and tough and the IQ of the team, all those things we credit him for. He sometimes has to go be a bucket getter. That's what his team needed to avoid the pressure at home of a Game 7. Chris Paul stepped up in a huge way. One last thing about this. Think about this. At one point, he was basically regarded with Darren Williams. It was a conversation, a debate, who was the best point guard of that time in the NBA in their early to mid-20s. Darren Williams retired 4 years ago. Chris Paul is playing the best basketball of his career right now, and the most meaningful games, he is playing his best. So that says a lot about what this guy has done, his longevity, his being able to stick with it this long, and now that butt can go away. He's now a guy that was available and played his best basketball when his team needed it and got a team to the finals that we didn't expect to be there.
And so, Seth, let's talk about specifically what he did on the floor last night through a coach's eyes for a guy to completely control the game the way he did and knock down 7 out of 8 threes. What did you see?
Well, first of all, Chris Paul is not a good leader. He's a great leader, and you saw it right there. You saw this basketball team. You know, you talk about all the teams that he's played on in his career. He's got guys that are willing to follow him. If you look at him, he's the Pied Piper of this Phoenix Suns team. Like, you talk about DeAndre Ayton, all right? He's following him. You talk about Devin Booker. He's following him. He didn't have that in other situations. But what he did on the floor is a couple things. One, against his own. They moved the ball. They moved people. They didn't settle. He got the ball where it needed to go. He's the last of a generation of true point guards. He was a ball guard last night. He scored 41 points. But he's the last of the true point guards, a playmaker, a guy that sets the table, a guy that gets others involved first and then gets himself involved. And then on the defensive end, you got to forget now, Chris Paul's been a 5-time first-team All-Defender. So he defends, he distributes, and he can score. But most importantly, I think his imprint on this team, and I don't know what you think, Legs, is what he does in the locker room. His leadership, getting those young guys to buy in. He's played with more talented teams that didn't get to the finals. But he's got this team to the finals because of his leadership.
We'll have a lot of time this morning, guys, to get more deeply into this. But quickly, I would ask, are they the favorite in the final, Tim? They're waiting for either a banged-up Milwaukee or a banged-up Atlanta team, one way or the other. Do you think Phoenix is the favorite?
I'm not sure this is the majority opinion, but they are for me. They'd be the favorite against either one of those teams. I think they're the most complete team. I think their role definition and acceptance is the best in the NBA. And I think right now, going through some adversity in this series, I think has made them battle-tested. I think they're the most complete team. They've had the cleanest sheet to this point. I would make them the favorite.
All right, guys, stay close. We have much, much more to get to on this morning. The legacy of Chris Paul, the Suns in the finals. We'll look at the East and a whole lot more. In the meantime, however, we are now into the month of July, which means NFL training camps are right around the corner. In fact, the first 2 teams to open camp will be the Steelers